Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 7.
London Relocation Services, Daniel speaking. How may I help you?
Good morning. My family and I are moving to London later this year, and I wonder if you can help.
Sure. First of all, I'll need to get some personal details. May I take your full name, please?
It's Anna Woods.
Thanks. Where are you moving from?
Northern Ireland, just outside Belfast, actually.
Right. And what's your current address?
It's 118 Fordyce Park. I'll spell that for you. It's Fordyce. And that's in Ballysillan.
And what's the postcode?
It's BT14 9BJ.
All right. And could I take a contact phone number?
I'll give you my mobile number as you can get me on that anytime. It's 07840 51963.
Great. Got that. Now, we always like to get a bit more information about the families that we're moving. It helps with the search. Are you moving for work?
Yes, my husband's just got a new job in London.
And what about you? Do you work?
Well, I've been working as a teaching assistant recently, but I'm actually a qualified nurse and I'd like to get back into that if possible.
Right. And do you have any children?
Yes, a son. So we need to find a school for him.
Is it a secondary school you'll be looking for?
No, he's still in primary school. He's not quite at the secondary level yet.
Fine. So, let's go on to talk about your requirements for the property. Do you have a preferred location? Is your husband's job in the centre?
No, it's in East London, but we'd rather live somewhere quieter.
Sure. There are some lovely areas in the south.
OK, that sounds great. Now, my husband doesn't want to spend too long commuting to work every day.
So I imagine that ideally he'd like to be not too far from a station then.
Yes, he drives now, but I guess that's not going to be possible, and he's not keen on buses.
What about you or your son? Do you have any preferences? Does your son do any sport, for example?
He's quite active, so I'm sure he'd love a park nearby to run around in. He doesn't do swimming or anything like that.
Great.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 8 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 8 to 10.
So, what sort of property do you have in mind?
We have friends who live in an amazing flat over there, but as we've always lived in a house, I think we'll stick with that. We'd find it hard to adapt to a flat.
OK. And size-wise, how many bedrooms would you like?
Well, there's just myself, my husband and our son.
So you definitely need a 2-bedroom property. But how about having a guest room? I might be able to find a 3-bedroom property for you.
Yes, that would be ideal. We're sure to have family visiting often.
All right, I've made a note of that. Now, are there any other requirements for your new property?
Well, it's not essential, but it'd be handy to have an office for when my husband works from home. It doesn't need to be a big one. I guess it all comes down to budget.
Yes. OK, Anna. Well, I've certainly got enough to be getting on with, and I will...
That is the end of Part 1. You now have 1 minute to check your answers to Part 1.
Section 2. You will hear a manager talking to company employees about moving to a new office building. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16 on page 3. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 16.
Thank you for coming to today's meeting, everyone. I'd like to give you some information about moving to our new office building so that you know what the plans are. So, first, let me explain why we're moving. Even though we've taken on quite a few new employees over the last year, we still have plenty of space here, but the problem is where we are. But we've now found the perfect place in the city centre. Originally, we chose this building in the suburbs because the rent was much cheaper, but our clients aren't always keen on coming out here. I visited the new office last week, and I'm pretty sure that you'll find the greatest advantage is the huge windows. I'm not sure we'll need desk lamps at all. Of course, we'll have everything checked out to make sure we can control the temperature of each office, and we may have to put some room dividers in some offices so that you're not disturbed by your colleagues' conversations. We've just set a date for the move. The finance department wanted us to wait until after the end of the tax year, April, but we've decided to move earlier. As soon as the sales conference is over in January, we'll move. That'll give us plenty of time to organise everything before you start taking your annual holidays. We've already put quite a bit of information about the move on the company website, like restaurants and cafes around the new office, but we're still checking bus routes and things like that, so transport information will be up by next Monday. Another thing still to get confirmed is which car park we can use and how many people can use it. OK, let's move on to some practical things you have to do now. Don't worry yet about taking home your photos and things like that. That can be sorted out much nearer the time, along with getting rid of any unwanted paperwork. We need to find out how many new desks and chairs to order, so could you make a list of any of the ones you use that are scratched or broken? Just one thing, all documents containing non-confidential information can go into the general packing boxes, but when it comes to documents containing confidential information, you'll need to put these in special bags. You'll be given grey plastic ones for this. So one thing to do now is go through your filing cabinets and identify which folders are confidential.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 17 to 20 on page 4. Now listen and answer questions 17 to 20.
Now, to help you prepare for the move, I'd like to talk about lifting heavy things. You shouldn't really have to do this because a removal company will be used, but you might want to move a box out of your way or something. It's surprising how often people don't remember to use the handles on the boxes, although they all have them. You've all had the leaflet explaining that you should keep your back straight and your head up when lifting. And it also tells you to stand with your feet firmly on the ground and a little bit apart, so I think that's clear. But the leaflet emphasises the importance of not twisting to the left or right once you've picked something up, and if you're like me, that's easy to forget. I'd also like to talk about papers. If they've been stored for a long time, they can get mould on them, a sort of fungus, and as soon as you start moving them, the fungus gets disturbed. As you know, you can't open the windows in this building, but I suggest you use the gloves that we'll provide. We'll also get some face masks, but we've been advised that these shouldn't be necessary. What you should do is drink 1 or 2 litres of water a day. That's essential. Often the best time to do this sort of work is after your afternoon break, so that you can leave the building soon afterwards. Now, are there any questions?
That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 3 on page 5.
Part 3. You will hear an engineering student called Kathy discussing a piece of work with her tutor. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 26. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
Hello, Kathy. How's your dissertation on water pumps going?
Not too bad, thanks. I'm getting on well with the literature review now, and my lab work's fine so far.
Oh, that's good. Remember, you should aim to have your results section completed by the end of next month, so there's plenty of time to finalise the whole thing by the summer deadline. Anyway, looks like you're on track. I've been through your first chapter now, and I was quite impressed.
Oh, that's a relief.
Well, sometimes your sentences are a little long and over-complex, but the overall structure of the piece is very clear. I'd recommend you get a critical friend to go through it with you. Then, once you've built in citations of other work in the field, I think it'll be pretty good.
Oh, thanks. I was pleased I decided to focus on water pumps.
You seem to be testing an appropriate range of pump design. Lots of students make the mistake of either restricting their range too much or, conversely, not narrowing it down enough. You've managed to avoid those twin traps. However, I think you'd get more convincing results if you took some additional measurements. I've noted exactly what I mean on your work.
Yes, I thought that might be necessary, and I know I need to get down to some more library work too.
Well, I don't think that's essential at the moment.
Oh, right. So what do you suggest I do next? Repeat my last experiment using different variables?
Well, you could have a word with James Higgins tomorrow. He's coming here to give a lecture on hydraulics to the faculty, and it would be a great chance to have a chat with him, especially as your experimental work has drawn so heavily from his last article in the British Engineering Journal.
Oh, fantastic.
And you never know how successful a chat with him might turn out to be. I got my first research post when I was a final year student and asked a visiting professor to explain what he meant in some article he'd written. So I urge all my students to take any such opportunity that arises.
But times have changed. People like that are too busy to talk to mere students these days.
I don't know about that. Anyway, is there anything else I can help with? Any practical information about layout, perhaps?
Well, I suppose I'm a bit unsure about how the bibliography should be presented. Mind you, I can just check what's normally done in journal articles, so that's not something to bother you with. I'd welcome some guidance, though, about what I should or shouldn't include in the appendices. I know some things, some of my data tables or details of specs perhaps, are not really needed in the main body of the text, and I'm likely to be pushed for words there.
Okay, I can certainly help you with that. But it will take a while, so can we deal with that next week? I've got that solar panel seminar to go into in a few minutes. There's plenty of work you can be carrying on with in the meantime.
Sure, that's no problem. I think I'll go and investigate the latest version of the CAD software to see if it might help with my pump design experiments at all.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 27 to 30.
Before you go, though, I'd like quickly to run through what you should be doing over the next few months, not just for your dissertation, but also to help your chances of getting the research post you'd like. Is that okay with you?
Yes, that would be really helpful.
Well, you certainly need to become a member of the Mechanical Engineers Society. And then you'll be able to go along to their meetings. There you must make a point of making yourself known to various people like Professor Jones. He's the current president and is very approachable.
Okay, so I could do some networking there.
Exactly. Also, I think you should try to set up some visits to industry. Go to a lot of different workplaces just to see how things are done. It's actually a very good way of making sure you're familiar with the cutting edge of what's going on. Textbooks, even academic articles, sometimes lag behind industry.
That sounds really interesting. Also, I'd love the chance to do a bit of work abroad for a while.
Well, that's actually the next thing I was going to recommend. I'm sure we could set up a month for you in either the States or Canada, and that would be a great way to find out how things are done elsewhere.
That'd be good, thank you.
And the last thing I was going to suggest was that you could go to the European Water Engineering Conference being held in Spain in May.
I could even present my dissertation there.
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much. That's all really helpful.
Good. So now if we...
That is the end of part 3. You now have 30 seconds to check your answers to part 3.
Part 4. You will hear part of a lecture about American salt marshes, which are areas of low land found near the sea. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Right. This morning I want to give you a brief introduction to a different kind of habitat, American salt marshes. And then we'll examine a particular inhabitant of the marsh, the horseshoe crab. Okay, so what are the defining features of a salt marsh to begin with? Well, salt marshes are found on the coast in various parts of the USA. They are really areas between land and water. Obviously, these are very wet areas, and the salinity, that's the amount of salt in the water, ranges from ocean strength to almost fresh. In other words, very low indeed. And the salt marshes are affected by daily changes in sea levels. The sea might wash in over them as frequently as twice a day, so the habitat is constantly changing. The amount of salt in the water rises and falls, as does the depth and warmth of the water. We'll be having a detailed look at the horseshoe crab in a moment, but marshes provide plentiful food for other creatures that feed there too, such as worms and shrimps. This food comes in the form of plants that thrive there. Interestingly enough, 200 years ago, the flow of water in marshland in the United States was controlled so that rice could be grown there. Little is grown there today, but 15% of coastal marshes are enclosed artificially in order to attract wild birds to the area, and we'll be examining those too. But before looking at the wildlife, there are a few political issues to make you aware of. There are always controversial issues when humans decide to make changes to natural habitats. During the past 20 years, many objections have been voiced to the building of artificial earth walls, or dikes, to use the correct term, on salt marshes to control the natural flow of seawater. Since the walls restrict the movement of high volumes of water, this means that the natural habitat of local aquatic life is reduced. And because the water is shallower, the temperature of the water may rise significantly during periods of low rainfall. In addition, although the insects are very happy there, many people are unhappy with the dikes. This isn't because they distract from the natural beauty of the landscape, but because their presence means it's more difficult for walkers who appreciate the marshes to go where they want. There is controversy over the different values placed on the resources of the marshes. Some people would like to see them used more fully for hunting, while others would like to see business permits granted to allow for further development. Interestingly, in the mid-20th century, marshes were not thought of as valuable at all, and over half of the salt marshes in the USA were destroyed at that time. In the main, this was due to filling the marshes to create more land for housing developments and to control the mosquito population. However, state laws now do reflect the importance and growing appreciation of marshes, not only as natural habitats, but also because they provide a natural barrier against storm damage, and therefore limit the amount of land lost to the sea. Right. We'll be debating some of those issues in the seminars, but let's now turn our attention to the horseshoe crab, which is the focus of our study this morning. Horseshoe crabs have changed very little in the last 350 million years. I find them interesting in many ways because they are, in fact, distant relatives of the spider, and not crabs at all. They look quite dangerous. In fact, they are absolutely harmless. The horseshoe crab's main diet is one of shellfish, but they will eat worms too. The crab places its food near its mouth, in the center of its underside where its legs are attached, and grinds and crushes it there. It has 5 pairs of legs. The female lays between 200 and 300 eggs and comes ashore to do that. This process takes place in spring, before the sand heats up in the summer months. Right. What I'm going to do now is show you some photos.
That is the end of Part 4. You now have 45 seconds to check your answers to Part 4. That is the end of the listening test. You now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the listening answer sheet.